We spent all of our money on the bills. I only had $100 left in our account. So we couldn't afford the next month's rent. So we had to leave and we'll move back into my mom's house where I was still in the garage there, but still too, like having a married couple with a kid. They weren't used to having people around, working in the garage, having our own sense of lifestyle or living. Like, oh, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this. And like, damn, that was the hardest part. Still to this day, I still hold the $100 bill. That's always a reminder of me, like, do you want to live off $100 still? Or do you want to keep making sure that they can provide?
What's up, Savage Boss Babes and Dudes? It's Diana inside the Savage Studio once again with another great episode. Please remember to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. And if you listen to us on Spotify or on Apple, please subscribe. That way you can get the alerts every time that a new episode comes out. And I am very excited to have my next guest here with me. We've been able to feature and bring in a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, and people that have been in the grind, hustling. And my next guest is been in the grind, hustling for many years. So I'm excited about all the knowledge that you're going to be able to share with us. Please welcome Justin Magallanes, also known as Jmagz.
Jmagz. Yeah.
So you were born in West Covina, but raised in East LA.
Yes, ma'am.
Nice.
Yeah.
And your family is originally from?
Grandfather's from Chihuahua. Grandmother's from Colorado.
Really?
And then my dad was born in El Paso. And my dad and my aunt were born in El Paso. And then, you know, the man of the house took care of the whole family. So from what I was told, grandfather decided, hey, I'm going to go find work in California. And when I find work, I'll bring one over, and that's the story. So my grandfather started working at a sheet metal shop down in East LA, and he brought my aunt and my dad over and my grandmother over, and then the house literally that was attached to the sheet metal shop, that's where we lived in. And so we lived there for I don't know how many years until we moved into a different location because they were selling the sheet metal shop and then that house too. So we moved out. I think I was like maybe 13 years old there. Then we moved to Chino, California, and then I went to high school up in Laverne. It's called Damien High School.
So tell me about growing up over there in California and with all that diversity inside your home, you know, your Colorado, Chihuahua. Shout out para la gente de Chihuahua.
Yeah. Well, it's a very strong Hispanic family, you know, going to church every Sunday, you know, Catholic family.
How many siblings did you have?
Well, it's me between my mom and dad.
Okay.
Yeah, then I have brothers and sisters too.
So it's a big family.
Big family. Big family. So, but I love them all. But like, it was always between my grandparents and I. My mom and dad always worked, but like my grandparents raised us. And I have a cousin too. My aunt's son, he's the only child as well. We were raised together. We're like brothers as well. And then when mom and dad split up, you know, we decided to do the whole split family. My mom moved to La Puente, and then we had brothers and sisters and all that stuff there too. But we're all close.
What kind of effect did that have on you? And like, how old were you when that happened?
From what I was told, my mom and dad separated when I was like 4.
Okay, so you were itty bitty still.
But my mom and dad were still best friends to the point where you couldn't tell if they were divorced or not.
Really?
And they're still like that to this day. Even like, I think when I graduated high school, like our close family friends that were at the, like, you grow up with the kids you went to high school with, and I was very fortunate enough to have that. And then the families you play football, whatever, like the sports families that stay together, and they were going like, "Where's your wife?" Or like, "Oh, she's late," and pretty much my mom would show up, and they go, "Do you know we're divorced, right?" And everyone could not know because my mom and dad are always together. Still to this day, everyone thinks my mom and dad are still together. They still call each other babe. And I go, "Do you want to marry my mom?" No.
Really?
Like, "Do you want to marry my dad?" She's like, "Absolutely not." But they're best friends.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a very tight-knit family to know that just because they're divorced does not mean you separate your beliefs, your family, you know, like that in general. So other than we split up households, you know, one day go dad, next day mom, dad, mom. So I did that whole travel stuff a lot. It affected me just a little bit because I've always lived out of a suitcase, which I do now. I pretty much live out of a suitcase.
It kind of
But
stuck to you, that
yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah. But seeing my parents happy, even though part of their life split together, that's how I am now as a father, as you know, raising a family as well. You know that no matter what, you don't you basically take away the differences between amongst each other and think about your kids. And that's what my dad and my mom did. Is they always thought about us, thought about me, and that if they're happy, their kids will be happy. And they show that a lot there too. And so even like, you know, my ex-wife and I and our son, I always tell them, you make sure you're polite. I treat your mom very well, just because I don't want that to affect my son, you know. And same thing too with my other son. I would make sure that her and I are great communicators. We're always happy together, and we're always communicating, knowing that we want to make sure we want the best for our son there too. So both my kids are happy because dad's happy, but the moms are happy, and so on and so forth. So no matter what, I still took that same belonging with my parents.
What
You
a
know?
blessing to be
Yeah.
able to have an example like that.
And they're great grandparents, by the way. Without them, I don't know. I don't know what I would do without
Yeah.
my mom and dad.
That's awesome because unfortunately, I've had many stories of people who have quite the opposite. You know, when they grow up in split households or when they come from divorced parents, it's just a bad experience. And just like you mentioned right now, it follows them throughout their lifetime, and it affects their relationships. It affects how they build their homes, how they build their families. And I mean, you said it yourself. It's an example of how you're living too, and how you've dealt with the situations
Right. And
in your relationships.
don't get me wrong. If it does struggle a little bit when you're growing up, because you kind of go back to like, okay, if things were different,
Yeah.
how are your upbringings being, how you mentally would be. I mean, now these days, everything's, a mental, there's mental issues is a big thing going on right now, and there's a lot of help there too. And I still struggle with that still as well. But knowing that there's a lot of help, information, a lot of activities, resources, all that stuff, it helps you out to think about, okay, there's a better light to the end of the tunnel, rather than being the same routine that's going on with you. So I think I kind of think about, if my mom and dad were together, would life be different? But honestly, I wouldn't change the difference there, just because like my mom and dad are great people, and they're always happy, and they would do anything for anyone, and that's how I got brought up myself. So even during my business, I try to help out much people as possible. Even though if I have 10 minutes of time, I'll give them my 10 minutes, just because like that's how my mom and dad raised me. My grandparents were big time like that too. They're involved in the church for like 40 plus years, and they will always go every Sunday.
Very
my,
devoted.
my grandfather would go to his neighbor's house, Mike, and you go mow the lawn in the morning. Whenever he mowed his lawn, he would mow Mike's lawn, and vice versa. And then my grandmother would always like cook tamales for the family, spread them out, even get to the neighbors. Like everyone knew my grandparents. So when they passed away, it was a big deal. And I didn't realize how much they had an impact in the community.
Yeah.
Until we went to the funeral. And that's how I know that I had a great upbringing from a grandparent's perspective and a parent's perspective. And now as an entrepreneur, as a father, like I saw two great men bring me up, and I saw what they did for their family. So like my grandfather took care of my grandmother. Like she never worked, and she was like always cooking. She's always taking care of the kids.
Stay at home mom.
Stay at home mom. Yeah. And my dad was working multiple jobs or going far just for me to go to school, private school, and even the point where he wasn't working at the time, and he still would send me to private school. And I think the blessing out of that, I got to see him all my practices, all my games. Even when I went to college, he got to go all my games except for like one of them. And I always like throwing under his belt, like, you went to all my games except for this one. That was my best game ever. So, but I had that great upbringing from the men in my life, my dad, my grandfather, and that's now I'm meeting the father. I still want the same thing, provide for my kids, knowing that dad works all the time, or dad works very hard for them all the time, no matter what, and that dad's not moping around, because my dad would never mope around, or my grandfather would never mope around as well.
So was entrepreneurship a part of your upbringing? Is that something that you picked up on your own?
Picked up on my own.
Really?
Yeah. I had a couple of jobs already. I guess I just couldn't sit down all the time. I couldn't really find a niche for myself. But
what did you see yourself doing, or what did you think growing up? Like, oh, I want to be this, or I want to do that, or honestly, like, what was running through your mind?
I want to be an astronaut.
Really?
I was a big math nerd, and I wanted to be an astronaut when I was growing up. I had like this sole plan to be an astronaut. And then when I realized like how much more stuff I had to do, and I mean, I was a pretty decent student, but I wasn't like a big like favorite person to be in school. Like,
okay.
Always you get home, you go outside, you do something, you find any way to get outside. And for me to sit down all day, no, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And then being a young dad, that's when we start. I needed money. And then very fortunate of someone to take me under his wing and saying, hey, if you bring me people in my facility, I'll pay you. I'm like, just to bring them? He goes, yeah, I'll pay you $20. After $20, then he's like, okay, you're bringing more people in, but I need them to stay. So now I'm going to show you how to sell. From selling, show to programming. Programming turned into developing like a whole entire athletes and working with kids. And then I just kept doing it. Like, I just needed money. And everyone goes, I get asked all the time, what made you want to do it? I'm like, I became a dad.
At what age?
A very, very young age. Yeah, I don't want to say that, but I was very, very young. Those who know me know how young I was. Yeah.
So, okay, so you were growing up. You couldn't sit still. You had to be doing something. Mm-hmm. What became your outlet? Was it sports?
Sports.
Okay. Sports. What did you start doing? What did you start playing?
Flag football, basketball. Even like my dad goes, yeah, my son was the California State free throw competition winner. And, at 7th grade, so we went all the way to Fresno to shoot free throws, and I was a state champion. And so sports was always our niche. And my dad was not a sports guy at all. He was on the band. He was like the drummer boy at his high school.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was like straight, like total opposite.
Yeah.
Band geek. And I always call him like a band geek. He's like the one to be the rock band. He was a drummer and all that stuff. He had the curls. He had the fro. He had a pinto. And then my mom was, my mom's a twin. So my mom's a twin of, I think there's like seven girls. There's a big family there too. So my mom would hang out with my dad, and they went to all clubs and all that stuff. My mom was a sports one in the family. And then, just eventually I just like sports. I always liked sports. My grandfather loved the Bulls, and I watched basketball with him. And then my dad's a big Cowboys fan as well. My grandfather too. So I always watched sports, but eventually the point where I was like, all right, 4th grade, I'll decide to play flag football. Did all through elementary school. And then 14 years old, going to high school, I didn't know how to play it, but decided to play tackle football, and then did really, really well there, and got to go to college, got to play a little pros too as well. So I was one of those things where it's naturally got gifted to do certain things really well, but I've always worked hard for it though. I always like woke up, like Rocky's our favorite movie at home. So I did the whole Rocky thing, wake up early in the morning, work out, whatever we had around. I mean, we're very poor too, so you find a jump rope or had some cinder blocks, and we had like concrete cinder blocks at home, and I would just like pick them up, throw them away and stuff like that, just because they were workout stuff. And then so that mentality came into where, okay, I can do pretty well for myself doing this. And then all the knowledge I got from my mentor, I turned into profit. just training young kids at a young age, like 7 years old. And those kids were going to high school or, middle school to high school to college to pro. 21 years later, now I'm still doing it. And 16 years, actually tomorrow will be 16 years I've been in my business.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm the old man in the group in the area I'm at, yeah.
So you decide that being an astronaut is out of the books, out of the question. At what point do you decide or do you start thinking like, hey, maybe sports is the road that I'm going to take and that's what's going to...
Well, I didn't think sports would take me that far.
No?
But people were just saying like, you're good. Like, you're really good. And then I had like multiple friends in high school, and when colleges come up to you and they start talking to you, back then, I mean, this is different now because now you go to different camps, you showcases, stuff like that. Back then, if you got invited to camps, that means you're considered a prospect. University of Texas, Austin was one of the schools that, invited me back in the day in high school, and I didn't know how good I was. And then even a coach from Texas was always like on me, and he's like, you're gonna be really good, you're gonna be really good for us, you're gonna need to have a good senior year. So when I got told that, the sky's the limit for me, and I just kind of like, all right, I think I do pretty well. But I always had that mentality, like, I have to be better than my opponent, I have to be better than someone else doing it, because if I'm not doing it, someone else is doing it, and I don't like getting beat. So even our household is like, we're so competitive, first one to grab the trash can and throw it outside, like the first one out the door, pretty much. Who got dressed first, who was the shortest, and take a shower or whatever. We're always so competitive there. And so all the achievements or awards I got my senior in high school, even my junior in high school, like my senior in high school was an All-American. I was all area, all regional. Then I got to play in an all-star game, California versus Texas. Top high school kids from Texas would come down to California, would play against top high school kids from California. I got to play that first one in the school history to play in that game there, which was pretty cool. Back then, SATs were really big, so I didn't do really well on the SATs, so I decided to go to junior college, and then I excelled there too as well. And I went to school, they told me like, you won't play for us. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go and play. So when I went to that school, I started my freshman year, and I 2-year starter. And I told that exact same coach, who is now at that University of Utah. He's a great mentor, I still call him coach too as well. He's like a big time friend of mine now. I go, remember the time you recruited me and said I want to play for you? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, I still think about that. And I said, I proved you wrong. And yeah, still to this day. And Coach Rudy, he coaches at Utah now. But and then from there I went to a 4-year university, still same thing. Played 2 years there. I became an All-American my senior year as well. My junior senior I became an All-American. Played in an all-star game for my school. First one to go in 10 years, which was great to achieve as well. And then I had a cup of coffee. A cup of coffee means a short term with a pro team, and played 2 pro teams as well. And then back in 2009, decided to go back to school as well, and I started working the whole entire time, full time. I haven't stopped.
You mentioned that while you're doing so well in sports, and you're really and not believing, or maybe not taking so serious those people and those comments that were being made to you about being so good and stuff. And but then you also mentioned that you became a father. How did that change your dynamic and your mentality, and what changes came about?
I always say the word hustle was born, knowing that I'm responsible for another being, and I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't used to it. I didn't know I was so selfish, I guess you can say. But when you have an individual, a young one, and then you have, his mother there too, like, those things come in perspective now, where you have to hustle for your family. And that, I think that's what that was born, was hustle. Like, I did anything to provide $1.
Do you feel like it made you grow up fast?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Multitasking was born as well. Multitasking. Scheduling, and that not everything's going to go what you planned. I mean, we all know as parents, like you think like we're told like it's gonna be like this, you know, other friends who have kids or whatever. Oh yeah, we did this way, we did this way. It doesn't always go the same way as planned, or you're always gonna screw up as a parent, you know. And even 21 years later, you know, I still mess up as a dad, and I have a 4-year-old, and I tell his mom like, he's not gonna be raised the same way like that one. That one's gonna be different, you know. And it's okay. Not every book that you can read in the world is gonna be the same. How your child's gonna be. It's he or she is gonna have their mind, their mindset, their mentality, their attitudes. You know, it's gonna be coming out from us. You know, like my little one, he's got his mom's attitude. It's a wild one. You know, and but I just always tell her, as long as he has your looks with my athleticism, we're good. And the same thing with my oldest one. I'm like, as long as he has your looks and my athleticism, we're good. We're good. Yeah.
So how are you able to juggle all that? Because I mean, being young and having all this potential and yet having all that responsibility, how do you juggle that? How did you get through it?
Having a team or having family, you know, like my grandmother and my grandfather were great examples of doing that as well. And then, you know, having great grandparents, my mom and dad, they're, like I said, I was very blessed enough to have a good set of peers in front of me that can say, hey, go do what you gotta do, know your responsibilities, but go do what you gotta do. We got it, you know. And my son's mom, same thing. She put her life on hold to be a mom, her schooling and whatnot, to take care of our son. And I honor her for that. I still honor her for doing that, you know. And even the point where she went back to school to get her degree. I think our son was like 9, you know. She went back to school to get that degree, and I was like, I'm very proud of you. You know, whatever decisions she wanted to do, I will always support it, because she always did that for me. So if she wanted to start a job, do this job, okay, good, you know. And even the point where like she wanted to start entrepreneurship at the time too as well, go for it. I never told her no. Even to this day, I still won't tell her no. But you know, I just because she never told me no. And even like my family, they never told me no. There's just find different avenues, different resources. What's your options? Even as a dad now, you know, my oldest one, I was like, what are your options now? What's your plan A? Well, what's plan B? What's plan C? What's plan D? You know, when he got out of high school, he wanted to be a painter. He was a great drawer. He still is a great drawer. But that wasn't like the right resources. He didn't have like a niche for it. And then it's like, what's your plan B? I don't know. Well, let's try to find out. And eventually the point where I had a couple of kids I have coached that were firefighters. And then we have relatives that are firefighters too, but like long distance cousins. And he goes, I want to become a firefighter, first in our family. Like, go for it. And that was his niche. Same thing with sports growing up. Football, baseball, basketball, you name it. We put him in everything. And it never got his niche. And then he found lacrosse on his own. And that was probably the best investment I ever put in my life for my son, was because he chose that.
Yeah.
And to see his mind, see his face and his demeanor and his attitude change for a sport that I didn't know nothing about.
Similar to what you mentioned about your dad, you know, not knowing about sports yet supporting you in whatever it is that you wanted to do.
Yeah, even to this day, my dad's the one, like, if it wasn't for you, I would not be involved in sports. So my dad's a big sports guy now. Or everywhere we go, everyone knows my dad because of me. Like my dad's always by me, and it's a funny joke amongst, like, I got my son and my dad bougie, and even my little one bougie, because they can never sit in the stands.
They want to be front and center.
Yeah,
VIP.
Because of me, I'm always either gone, you know, courts, I gone on the fields, whatever. I've always brought my boys, my 2 boys with me, or my oldest with me, and my dad. So whenever I get tickets to a game or whatnot, my dad goes, are we going on the field or are we going to be in the stands? I'm like, Dad, you got to be on the stands for this one. He's like, oh, I don't really want to go. I'm like,
I
you're
know what that.
bougie.
I know exactly what he means. When I used to be in radio, and we would go to concerts, or we would work at the concerts, or the festivals, or whatnot, we would have like our specific area, right? And it's
Yeah.
usually like next to the stage or behind the stage, and it's like you get the little special
Yeah.
badge, and not everybody can go into your area, and it's like it makes you feel a certain way.
Yeah. Well, last time we were in Austin together. I took my dad with me to University of Texas game versus West Virginia, and so for the first time I was like, you know what, Dad, like you're gonna go with me. I had a couple kids, or actually one played at West Virginia, one played at Texas, and I got to go work on them as a therapist. And I told my dad, I go, just come with me. He's like, you're gonna see what I do. My dad's never seen what I've done in my career. So like, as a PT or travel, he was like, where are you going now? Or I'm going here, going here, going here. And so for me to take him for the first time, it was a big deal for me. So, you know, where we stayed, where we ate, like I wanted him to see exactly how I work. So to see my dad's face, like, like look around, like, oh man, like this is the real deal. And then I'm working on these athletes. They're in the facilities, and my dad's dream was to be at University of Texas, to be on the field. And because I played on the field when I came for camp, he was in the stands. So I took him on the field, the back of the facility, so on and so forth. He met guys on the team, and he was like in awe. And then I got a phone call, like halftime. I remember it's halftime. San Antonio was hosting this called the Spring League for professional athletes. They were playing at University of Texas San Antonio Stadium, and I had 10 guys on different teams, but the same, because they stay in the same hotel. And one of my players goes, "Hey Jay, can you come down?" I go, "Well, how far is Austin from San Antonio?" And he was like, "Well, let's look it up. It's like an hour 15 minutes." I go, "Dad, after the game, we're gonna go back to the hotel. I'm gonna take a nap. And so after this, we're gonna go down to San Antonio." And he's like, "Why are we going to San Antonio?" I said, "Well, I'm gonna go work on some pro guys." And my dad's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, but he's like, "Son, it's 7:00. I go, "So?" It's like, this is late night. This is what I do. We didn't get back till like 2:00 in the morning. I was working on all these guys. But the look of my dad's face and going like, I had such a great time
Yeah.
here. Like, thank you for taking me. Like now I respect what you do. For him to tell me that, I know I had a stamp of proof. Like, I don't just travel to mess around. Like I travel to work. I got to like take my dad to a couple like favorite spots down in Austin, or him meeting like pro guys who are like on the cusp making like NFL teams. And I have a great relationship with them. I call all my kids, by the way. So like, cause I'm older, so all those guys I work with, I call my kids. Like, "Oh, I gotta work on this kid, Dad." Hey, and then a couple of guys are hanging out with my dad, chopping it up, and "Hey, do you want anything to eat, sir?" And he's like, I'm like, "You gotta call it sir," stuff like that. So it's cool. Same thing with my oldest son too, as well. I got to take him to Philadelphia for the AFC NFC championship between Niners and Philadelphia Eagles. And I got to take him to Philly one time with me, and that was the best. My son to see, like, "Damn, Dad, that's what
Smile
you do."
from ear to ear.
Yeah, he's like, "This is what you do, Dad." I go, "Yeah,
Yeah.
this is what I do." So like, and now both my dad and my son are like, "Hey, when's the next trip?"
That's
When
awesome.
Yeah, so I got to experience that there. Even like my youngest one, we took him to Colorado as well, and I was working with the Broncos. Got to take him down to the field, stuff like that with him. And so I got to travel with the baby. I think he was 2. He was 2 years old. So I mean, that was an adventure itself. And then same thing when I was working with the Rams organization as well a couple of years ago. I got to take my little one on the field and got to run around with him, and it was cool. And I'm saying to my dad. My dad was with me the whole time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So at what point did you decide, I'm not going to work for somebody else, I'm going to work for myself? I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a business owner. And what was that first venture like?
Well, I was always working for corporate gyms. Like,
Okay.
LA Fitness. Everyone goes like, I always tell them, don't be afraid to work for corporate gyms. That's how you learn like sales.
That's where you get your schooling?
Yeah, pretty
it's
much.
true.
Yeah. And LA Fitness, 20 Goals Gym, UFC Gym when they first opened up there. So there was only 3 UFC gyms at the time, and I created the curriculum for all 3 of them there. And then 24-hour fitness, only reason why, because I got paid more. So I left UFC to go there. And then Goals Gym, the only reason why I went to Goals Gym, because it was like 5 minutes from the house. And so
it was convenient.
Yeah, so I decided to go there. It was actually in the mall. I was one of the first employees to open up that mall there too as well. So I've always like been part of like corporate gyms, and then eventually the point where someone goes, "Hey, do you do stuff on the side?" And I'm like, "Well, I did it for young kids, and I was doing it for the kids I worked with still, but I wasn't. I was training for free. I didn't know how to. I was afraid to ask for money."
Really?
But
Why?
I wasn't afraid to ask money from the corporate gym. But like on the side, I always thought I was like, nah, it's like I like doing this. I like training, So, but I was hustling for a corporate gym and getting paid pennies. And I told him, like, if I can take that same mentality and turn it to individuals on the side, I'll that's full 100%. So
What caused you to think that way, or to redirect your mind and think like, why am I going to be working for a corporate company when I could be doing this for myself?
my paycheck, when I worked for one big time facility down in Irvine. It was called Velocity Sports Performance. And I was like double dipping. I was doing LA Fitness, home, and then I was doing Velocity. I thought being at Velocity was being the future of what I was going to do for our family. And I was making like 30,000 a year and travel and 50 miles a day, Monday through Saturday, just for 30,000 a year, and still couldn't pay for our rent, and when I got married, we weren't very financially stable, or we're still living a low income, and that my ex-wife wasn't asking me anything from her parents too as well, and same thing, I never asked anything from my parents, so we were like so independent on what we wanted to do as a family and raise our son. And then eventually the point where I got tired. I got really drained out. Like
I was just going to ask, what kind of toll did it take on you?
My boss telling me I was not good at the time. He said, "You'll never be better than me." When I was taking his clientele, basically his clientele was coming to me for advice, because I just retired, by the way, too. So I was a former player. And then having the backing from an individual, that mentor, who was very well known at the time. And then when I was being asked to run certain things so the company was a partnership. It was 2 individuals that partner up in there. So basically when I was working for the one guy, when the other partner said, "Hey, you're good. Can I have you? Can I have you work with my guys?" And these are like first round draft picks, by the way. And he was getting jealous because he was not getting asked to do it. I was getting asked. Then his clientele was asking me for advice too as well. So the point where he goes, "You'll never be better than me." Like he's like, he said, "I don't care who you are, but you'll never."
And he told you that to your face?
To my face, as a man, and to the point where I'm done. And I said, rather than, could have just been like a good coach or a good leader, I guess you can say, and say, "Hey, I will raise your, your pay," or, what are you doing different than, just, to be a good leader, you got to, spread your ideas. It's like, how can you be a good leader, or what's your team doing? You can't be like the sole image no matter what. And to the point where I remember going home and I just cried. First time I cried in front of like, my ex-wife, like we were just, and she's like, "No more, no more." So you're not going to go back to LA Fitness. You're not going to go back there. Let's find a way. And then at the same time too, we started the garage. I asked my mom, like, can I start in the garage? I already had clientele, but I was just doing it for free. And then I told him, like, "Hey, I'm gonna start doing my own stuff on my own to the side." And then eventually the point where that turned into profit. That's when my first loan came in, and that was from her. And she gave me $400. go on Craigslist, and then we came home with a rack, a bent bar, about 300 pounds in plates, 4 kettlebells, and 2 mats. And that was my garage. And then I went to like Home Depot, bought cinder blocks. I went to Ross, I bought like jump ropes. And then I would go to Home Depot, buy like the 50-pound bags of cement and make my own like concrete stuff there too, like with buckets at the time, or sandbags too. So the sandbags were like $5 at a time, 25-pound sandbags. Tape them up together, 2 together, that's 50-pound sandbags. So we would do a lot of sandbag stuff there too. I had one kid, his name was Julian Jenner. He went around the back on the Buffalo Wild Wings that are by our house, and they had kegs laying there. And he took the kegs from the house from there and brought them back. Goes, hey, I brought you kegs. So we filled them up with rock and water and made like heavy kegs in there too, and said Buffalo Wild Wings on the side of it too. It was pretty funny. And then I had a good friend who was a strongman, based out in Vegas. His name's Big D, and he's Dom. And he's like, Jay, I can't do this stuff no more. I can't lift heavy no more. And he goes, do you want these tires? Like, I have these 600-pound tires. I like all this equipment. I go, when can I pick it up? He goes, can you come by tomorrow? So my dad and I got in a truck, drove all the way to Vegas to load all that stuff in, and drove it back that same day there. And then that garage grew within that time. And 6 years, I trained out of the garage.
So at this point, when you guys are initiating this project, your family solely depended on your income?
Yeah. Yes. And my son's mom, she was working too. Mm-hmm. But we were living in an apartment, and then out of the blue, she tells me who's coming in the facility or who's coming in the garage. And she never asked me that. And I was like, why you ask? I just want to make sure we're good on money. And she just started a new career. So like the point where we were living off scraps still.
Yeah. And that's really hard when you have children.
Right.
Oh my gosh, it's probably the hardest thing ever to have responsibilities and try to launch your own business, your own project, because I don't know if you experienced that, but in for example, for me, I just feel so much guilt because I'm like, why didn't I do this before? Yeah. You know, my kids didn't ask to be brought into this. And here I am struggling, trying to make ends meet. And why, like why did I put myself in this situation? I feel guilty a lot of times.
It's okay. It's okay to feel guilty, just because I'm the same way too, because I see a lot of families now these days, they spend a lot of time with their kids. Mm-hmm. I don't. I think that's my biggest regret now, still as entrepreneurs. I don't spend as much time with my boys. Like my little one goes, Daddy, go to work? Yeah. Like when you hear that, in my mind, it's like, that's the worst thing in the world you can see. But I had a friend tell me, like, he knows already that Dad works. Like, he's gonna know, like, my dad worked for hard. My youngest one too, he knows that Dad works all the time, but like, having 9-to-5 job and get to spend 2 hours, whatever, or 3 hours to do things with your kids, I don't know what it feels like. I left the college professor job because I was only spending 35 minutes a day with my little one. I left that to spend an hour and a half to 2 hours with him. Now I'm at a high school because the drive is convenient, and they're paying me more too as well compared to a college. I thought being a college is like a higher elite level.
Yeah.
With that.
No.
And it was only 8 miles away, but in California, 8 miles is like an hour drive. Mm-hmm. So I would have to leave the house leave school right at 3:00 to get back by 4, if that. And then I would spend 30 minutes with him, and then I will leave my house to go back to work at the facility. That was 25 minutes. So there, and the point where when your son runs away from you because he doesn't know who you are, it was a click. And he might tell his mom, like, I'm just depressed because like my son doesn't know me. That was the hardest part as an entrepreneur, still to this day, just because like prioritizing time. But when you're so independent and so dependent on an income,
Yeah.
you don't realize like your sole purpose as a father, as a parent, like you're the provider of their well-being or the house that you live in or the food that they eat. You forget that the time with them is the one that's most valuable. So sometimes I still like catch myself when I go in like, oh crap, I need to spend time with my kids. Even when I leave, every time I leave out of state, I always have to see my oldest son. Like, it's my rule. Like, I need to see you 10, 15 minutes, no matter what. Then I see my little one, same thing too, just because you never know. So I always have like a certain thing, like I have to see my boys before anything else.
Yeah. I think I actually created a little reel about it because when I first started into having my own business or starting my own business, one of the things that I would always hear other people who had done it before me say was, I wanted to set my own hours. I wanted to set my own hours. And so you go into this thinking, okay, well, you get to set your own hours because you decide when you work and when you don't work. Well, come to find out, it's not like that, especially in the beginning. You don't. When you work for a corporate company, you work 40 hours or, sometimes overtime, but it's 40 hours set time, and you clock in and then you clock out and you're done, Whereas when you have a business, you pretty much are working 80 hours a week, and you don't get to clock in and clock out because you clock in and you're thinking about your business, what you have to do that day, all this and that. When you clock out, you're still thinking about your business, what you have to do for the next day, what you have to do for the next week. So it's like, and it's temporary. I do want to make it clear. It is, it eventually changes. It's like everything. Your business matures and you get to different levels. But in the beginning, it's not like that.
You're developing a foundation for no matter what. And that's why I tell young coaches that come to me and asking me like for advice, or young coaches that work for me, like, oh, like I went out last night, or like, hey, like I'm not getting the money that I want. I'm like, well, you're going to have to work. You have to hustle. You have to sacrifice stuff, And I tell them like all the time, like, I'm 38 years old, you're gonna be 39. You're 21, 24. I think one's 24, the other one's 26, 27. And I'm going like, I still outwork you guys. You guys should be outworking me. So you want to be where I'm at? Really? You have to outwork me. So I guarantee you, no one, the stuff that you want to do in the future, you're creating bad habits. And I was like, I had to have a kid for me to create a habit. I had to have a kid to establish a vocab, a certain vocab, a certain verb, hustle.
Yeah.
Move around, do different things, think, and
to transform your mind too.
Budget, finances, and that no one taught me this in the school. No one. Like, I went to school to be a kines major, but I didn't learn business. I learned business by like, okay, how much money is that thing? I need to spend, I have to save up to get that thing. And then I was spending all my money on certain things, and then going back to what my ex-wife was like, who's coming to the facility? I'm like, I don't know why. And I'm like, well, everyone's leaving, this person's leaving, this person. And she's like, exactly, who's leaving? Who's coming in? So I didn't know that, generating revenue. I didn't know that part. And we spent all of our money on our bills. I only had $100 left in our account. So we couldn't afford the next month's rent. So we had to leave, and we'll move back into my mom's house, where I was still in the garage there, but still too, like, having a married couple with a kid. They weren't used to having people around, that thing. Working in the garage, having our own sense of lifestyle or living, and then he's like, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this, and like, damn, like, that was the hardest part. Still to this day, I still hold the $100 bill that I had left. So that's always a reminder to me, like, do you want to live off $100 still, or do you want to keep making sure that they can provide? So that mentality came in really good when knowing that we were dead broke because we didn't know about the finances. We weren't sure of like always recruiting, always having new people come in or referrals or marketing. Now everything is about marketing. Content. Content is key. I'm very, very bad at it. I'm very, very bad at it. But I try my very best to just try to just throw information out there. Or my oldest showed me how to do reels, and I didn't know how to do anything like that. Even like a lot of the athletes that are like social media famous, pro guys, they show me how they do it. So I started learning how to do it on my own. Like, oh, this is how you do it. Like, I'm like the old grandpa now, like with the phone. Like, oh, this we can do with the phone, or like I've been told to get on a TikTok, but I don't have a TikTok.
Uh-huh.
I'm on Twitter a lot, so I'm like, oh, I know Twitter. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, or even just like on IG, and it's the point where like certain times a day that's you put your content in. I didn't know that.
Yep.
How long is a reel? Gotta have to be. What's your verbiage? Gonna have to be your tags.
Is the audio trending?
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you look at mine is lately what I've been doing on mine is put on certain like pictures that catch the eye because it's something describes that video. So I did one with like a speed video, and it was max velocity, which is top speeds. Basically learning like a wheel. So I saw Sonic the Hedgehog. He's the exact same thing.
Oh yeah.
And caught people's eye, and it's a big thing now because of that. So I've learned that maybe if people catch people's attention, that's what people will know me for. But I've always been known to be like a straight face, no demeanor, just tell you how it is type of coach, and no dry tongue, and even the point where I've learned the master word no. Do you want to do this? No. I just had an argument at home, and they want me to purchase something, or hey, do you want this? Do you want this? I'm like, no. And they're like, oh, is this? I'm like, no. Like, I raised my voice. I'm like, how many no's you gotta tell me this?
You're like, let me change the tone. Maybe the tone will get through.
They're like, I can't believe you yelled at me. I'm like, I told you no the first time, but.
So how do you pick yourself up from having $100 in your account and not throwing in the towel and just keep going? How did you do that?
Well, at the time they were alive, my grandparents, and my grandmother was always one to give her little words of wisdom here and there. Very jokester. She was the life of the party. I'm like my grandfather's demeanor, very kick back, lay back, and it is what it is. And my grandmother was always the one that always pushed him to do certain things. So when I was like struggling, even like through my marriage too as well, she would put like little life perspectives in it. And it made me realize, like, you know what? I'm living in a house now because of my mom. So very fortunate to have that. So we weren't paying rent. So she was telling me, like, you can't look at it as a disappointment. It's an example that you weren't doing things right because you were letting things preoccupy you by other things, taking away from the goal. What's the goal? Like your family, right? You were worrying about business. You forgot about your family. And if you worry about your family, that pretty much that drive that you develop this thing will grow that business. And that's why now to this day, family, like I say, we call them monster family, or like my kids, because that's my family there, because those are the ones that I tell them all the time. I go, you hustle for me, I'll hustle for you. And same thing for like that mentality goes into my kids now, to my own 2 children. It's like, if they're happy and they're doing things and they can provide for them, clothes or sports and all that stuff, because I know that the investment is worth the while there too. So like, I just, from her perspective, that helped me a lot to think, okay, slow down. You have to provide for your family in order to grow that business. And that's what I did. And I started just working on my family, and then my business grew because they saw how much love I provided towards like my family. And I was always talking about my family, my family, my family, my family. And then the point where you're our monster family. Even the point now to this day, when I started doing IG and I started welcome to the monster family, welcome to our family. When people started hearing about that, like he's very family oriented. That's what a lot of families wanted, was that environment for family. So like every Saturday in the garage, we would have like strongman competitions, and mom and dad would buy meat and chicken. And after we were done, they would just bring out the tables and the kids will eat with us. The neighbors across the street, sometimes we had potluck. Neighbors were so cool that they would bring like beans or rice or whatever and eat with us outside in front of the garage. So it was our family. Business was growing because this guy's doing all this stuff for his kids in his garage. And I still haven't changed my prices I still keep the same prices 21 years later still. And it's grown into the point where now where I'm at, same mentality. You do it for your family. I go to games. I tell them like, you won't see me wear any of my logo stuff. When I go to events, like I don't wear my logo because I don't want the eyes on me. I want the eyes on my kids. I stand to the side to watch them. And then I show up after and they're like, you came? I go, yeah, you told me that you invited me. It's like a lot of times I see a lot of young kids or trainers or the logos going out just for attention, and I'm like, I'm not for that. I'm there to go see my kid. Even when my oldest was playing ball, like everyone knew who I was as a coach, but I always would stand to the side or the coaches would talk to me. I'm like, I'm dad. I don't know nothing. I just want to watch my kid play, so don't expect me to yell at you for my kid not playing. If he's not doing things properly or not doing things apart, that's his job, not mine. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to be that type of person there. And then now that the little one's gonna be playing T-ball pretty soon, same thing too. Like I may coach him, but I'm like you're not gonna, all eyes gonna be on you, buddy. Like I don't want to be the dad that try to live my glory through him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I always make sure when I go with the kids, I go, hey, you just let me know what games you want me to go to. If you want me to fly out, I'll fly out to go see you. If you can give me a ticket, that's cool. If I have to purchase my ticket, I'll purchase my ticket. And then like, no, we got you, coach. I'm like, okay, cool. And then so I'm very fortunate enough to be able to do those things now. To travel and see my kids play and just watching all the work, on the off season or in season, just coming to par. And, you develop so much relationships and friendships with these kids that, they're like your kids. You're a dad. I mean, some kids don't have dads. So when I talk to them, I treat them like my own son or daughter. I'm hard on them, don't get me wrong, but, there's a purpose for it. And because they don't have that example sometimes. I'm working with a kid named Josh Woods. Came out of Upland High School, played at UCLA. Pretty much had a lot of NFL teams at the time. Not, telling him one thing and then something else happened. And then, he was referred to me by his best friend. And eventually the point where we've become so close. And now he's done well in the Canada Leagues, the CFL. Potential again to make an NFL appearance, hopefully. He brought his sister around all of us too, and she was playing around with Jace, my youngest one. And so like it's like a family thing. And my mom hugs him, and like we call him Uncle Josh. And then Jace always runs to him when he sees him. So like to see that happen as a dad, and to see that happen, getting close to all those kids, or like Josh, for example, I thrive on that success, because he's not giving up. What makes you think I'm going to give up? So the point where, it just within the last 3 weeks, he had to work out for the Broncos, and then he came back on a Wednesday, and then they got a call that Wednesday that he had to fly out Thursday for the New England Patriots. And then he got back on Sunday, and then on Wednesday he got a call. He had to work out with the Packers, and he just got back. And I was like, he's like, things are just happening for a reason. I was like, just keep the faith. Yeah. And he's the reason why I want back into my faith. And after my grandparents died, after I went through divorce, I kind of just started like losing faith. Didn't want to go to church. I was like that for a long time. And then last year, he was just mentioned. We were just talking about 4 days, 40 nights. You know, just giving up what we're gonna give up, and I go nothing, because I'm always gonna just pretty much always mess up, or always like if I say I'm gonna give up cookies, that's not gonna last a day. If I give up drinking, I'm gonna last a day, even though I don't drink, but just stuff like that. I've always said something. And then he goes, "Why don't you just go back to church?" And he's coming from his parents are pastors too. I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And he goes, "Just go, 5 minutes." That 5 minutes was probably the scariest thing in my life when I went back, and I was shaking, I was like crying, and like I'm not a crier, but for something hit me there.
Yeah.
And so now because of that, I've gone back to church. I regained my faith. You know, I go every Sunday. I did 40 days. Every day I went to church. 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever my time schedule allowed me, maybe 30 minutes sometimes. I just sit there, pray, talk, or just hang out there. And then when I did 40 days, I got to take the baby with me for my 40 days. And he enjoyed church. He really enjoyed it. He liked the music. He was dancing up and down. He sat down. Even like the lady that was with me, sat next to me, family, and she was like, he sat through the whole thing. I go, yeah, I'm shocked myself. You know, so
That's amazing.
so
Good
like
for
because
you.
of him, I regained faith.
Yeah.
You know, and same thing that my grandmother was trying to do at the time. I was like, I don't want to go because it's, you know, you're forced to do something.
Yeah.
And
Sadly, when we go through really, really hard things in life, that's usually the first thing that goes is your faith.
Yeah.
And I've been there, you know, I've been in moments where I'm just like, God doesn't like me. Like if he really liked me, these things wouldn't be happening to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it takes a while for you to turn around and be like, wait a minute, like, what did you do to get yourself in this situation? Because God doesn't usually send you bad things. You know, he doesn't put you in bad situations. It's usually spurred from decisions that you make on your own. And that's when you have to when I've taken a step back and I'm like, oh yeah, if I hadn't done that, or if I've done that differently, you know,
well, that's when
the outcome would have been different.
Even just like going back to like the $100 story and I was talking about earlier, is just that was all through faith. That was all through God looking over what we had to do. Yeah, we were poor, but he never let us go homeless. He always provided for us. Either A, my mom took us in, or B, you know, she got a good job. And even like during COVID, like the whole situation with COVID, Vanessa literally really just started a career, a new job. And then COVID happened, and she was a new mom too as well. She was like afraid that she wasn't going to be able to be a mom towards Jace. And eventually the point where through her faith and through like prayer, even though COVID was the worst thing that happened for us, for all of us, she got to be a mom for Jace. She got to work from home.
Yeah.
So she got to be a first-year mom and be home. And then same thing with too was for us, you know, during COVID, I was the sole provider too as well. I was still able to find a way to work. You know, I was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I will work for a few hours. And I was making a lot of money during that time, because at the time gyms weren't supposed to be open. So we had to do like a secret knock, had to be there certain times.
Really?
Yeah. It was a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That was a knock. Yeah.
So you had to keep going.
So I told him, like, hey, you got a 5-minute gap. If you're not showing in that time and the door's open, you can come in. If the door's closed, you can't come in. And you have to park away from the building, so no one knew exactly what was going on in the building there. And then we had a city official work out with us there too as well. So she told us how to do it.
Really?
Yeah, so she was super cool about it. She goes, hey, I'm not losing my workout stuff. So she goes, you go every other day, and if someone tells us there's someone going in the gym, working out in the gym, we will wait 24 hours to go in, to go check it out. The next day, no one's there, so we can go, so no one's there. So the point, we will go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday Then we go Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Like we had the different days, like all of
You
us.
had the rotation figured out,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the hours, the whole
I will
thing.
work. Yeah, I will work from like 9 to 12. I have all off, so I got to be around being dad, and then I have 5 to 7, and that was it. So I will work a double shift, and I was making good money too, because I had to double my prices at the time.
Yeah.
That was the only time I had to like raise my prices. So, but other than that, the 20 years plus, I've never changed my rates. And everyone goes, "You're so cheap. You're so inexpensive." I go, "Well, it's an investment. I'm not looking for 1 month. I'm looking for a year. I'm looking for 3 years. I'm looking for your whole entire career. Invest in little of this, because the outcome in the future is going to be well worthwhile." And so that's how I gain trust from the families, knowing like the amount of investment that you're putting into him right now, the outcome is going to be worthwhile. But if you stick to the program, I'll create the program, but you have to make sure you support him or her. It's like, I understand vacations, jobs, whatever. So that's why I try to keep it very affordable. If you can't pay for something, just let me know in advance. I go, but I know when people are taking advantage of me. So I'm pretty good at that. I've already had like plenty of, people take advantage of me plenty of times. I kind of knew what to do. But it's like, if you can't do something, you just tell me. I'm understanding. Either A, I say, hey, don't worry about it, we'll still work. Or B, bring me someone else. And that's how I started like my first 7 kids. I call them the OMs, the original monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one kid who brought his cousin. I go, okay, if you bring me 2 kids that will pay full price, I'll train for free. So that cousin turned that cousin, the other cousin, his brother, and all that stuff, at the point where I had from 7 to like 30 kids, because all those kids didn't want to pay. So they would bring someone else there too. And I told them like, hey, you bring 2 kids, you won't pay. So those 2 brought more people.
Look at you bringing in ambassadors before ambassadors was a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, hey, you bring me 2 kids I go, if they're just like you, meaning like player wise, like I'm not going to train just no Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
It's like, you bring me 2 kids like you, then I'll keep going. And then I had kids that are going to Super Bowl, and eventually the point where I had 2 first round draft picks come out of the garage. And then, so just because it was all by word of mouth, and I still work like that, still word of mouth. So, I mean, I don't market it whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, I used to have like flyers and business cards, stuff like that. But now I still by word of mouth still. And that's my best business.
So the garage is going strong. You're traveling, working with all these teams. But tell me, how did Jordan come about? How did that come to you?
I was working I was doing therapy on an individual, and Mandy was a well-known track runner, and she invited me to Oregon to go work on her for her track meet. And then eventually the point, I didn't know who she was, by the way. I knew her last name, but I didn't know her. She talked about her family, and I was talking about like my boy, at the time.
Yeah.
And
to you, she was just another client.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then I got called from them, from the brand, and saying, do you know who her dad is? I'm like, no. And so saying that he's a high up VP or a head person for Jordan brand.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who that was. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, I was so clueless.
Yeah.
Back then. And so now 6 years later, I've been with the company.
That's awesome.
Head PT for that company there too. So
that's awesome.
It's a well-known brand, and I enjoy it. It has its perks. You're getting free Jordan gear all the time. That's it.
Man, at any point, did you kind of just sit down and just look back, reflect at everything that you've accomplished?
Oh yeah.
At everything where you are at this point in your life. And what was that talk to yourself like in your mind, or to yourself?
Well, this actually happened maybe I just got done working, and we just got done talking about some stuff, and then I was cleaning up, and I to the point where when I realized like damn, like I have a 21-year-old and I got a 4-year-old, And I'm like sitting on my chair, on my office chair, and just looking at around. I was like, and where my building is at now, it's pretty secluded. It's not loud at all. You can see, there's the freeways right down the street from there, and like there's a couple of schools too. But like, and the traffic's going out pretty simple. And I'm just like looking out the window. I'm going like damn, like from this to this, from the point where like my little one was just, I was pushing around my little one and the sled. My oldest one was that time was little, and now like watching my oldest play around with my little one, and just different things, just thinking about like traveling and all the things that are coming up like with Jordan, and then a new league called the IFA, which is the International Alliance, a football alliance, which is based a football league based out of Mexico, and they want me to run that thing too. So like being Hispanic and doing something based on that.
That's awesome.
And then being part of a baseball agency too, uh, Universal agency, and working with all baseball guys. Just I'm still involved in different things, but different avenues, and I'm going like, I would never thought I'd be doing this 15 years ago, or even like coming here and speak on podcasts based on my experiences or like my past, and talk about what I've done to be where I'm at today. It's just it trips me out still too. Even when I travel for work and I go different cities and I'm doing different things, it still makes me trip out. Mm-hmm. Too. I'm still a fan, I guess you can say. Like even though it's work for me, but I'm still a fan when I come out to these different states and to work and meet people like you, and to talk about like me, I guess you can say. And like I've been advised to just speak out more about what I've done in the past, because now young entrepreneurs look for that stuff. How can we last 20 years? How can we do this?
Yes.
It's not all about videos, because I grew up, when I started, I didn't have videos. We didn't have anything like that. We didn't have YouTube, and I mean, I was even talking about how back in the 90s was a great generation for all of us, because we didn't have any of that. Like I tell them, I had a pager, and then it was a clear one. And then we had a Nokia, my first Nokia one, where the interface, so like either blue, you're clear, whatever. I go, that generation was cool. You don't understand how struggling it was, back then. In CDs, you had like 100 yep. CDs and all that stuff. I'm like, you guys have it easy,
Yeah, that's true.
Even like contents, like everyone's with a camera now these days. I don't bring cameras out, and someone's like, how do you last so long? I go, well, I don't have a camera around with me all the time. And it's like, you get out there, you meet people, you have to sacrifice so much to get your name out there, because around the corner, everyone's a trainer, and at least in my industry, every corner, every park, you'll see trainers out there, or former athletes that just don't want to work, 9 to 5. They want to just do, that's all they know. And that, or it's easy to make a quick buck, having your own schedule. All that stuff in general, I think is so easy for young entrepreneurs, because the access that they have compared to when I started, I didn't have that access. And everyone goes, what made you start? I had a kid. That was
what keeps you going.
Yeah,
you have kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I see I go, see him running around. I go, that's the reason why. See him walking around. Yeah, that's the reason why. See that food he's eating? That's the reason why.
What would you say to those of us who have been in the game less and are just now experiencing similar challenges and that doubt that creeps in, when you are down in the hole and maybe not making so much money, not seeing so much progress? And, what would you say to those people, you have been through those challenges and being on the other side of it now?
It's okay to fail. It's really okay to fail, because that's the best part about it, because you have to experience failure in order to feel success. And I think that I've been through many failures to learn from my mistakes. I've been through many failures to know what's right and what's wrong. and I've experienced failures to know that I never want to feel that again, that feeling again, because if you keep doing the exact same stuff and it's always failure, you're kind of going like, okay, there's something's up. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with the system? What's wrong with my, my environment? Whatever the case of being is, communication. Even with, being in the past relationships, I think that's lacked for me the most was communication. And as a married couple, communication is key. And I think that's one thing I didn't do when my marriage was communicating. So for any entrepreneurs, that you're going to have to fail to get back up. Do you get back up and you move forward and learn from that? Or you just stay there and just kind of and mope? Or do you, regret, but find a verb that you can live off of. My verb is hustle. My verb is that tells me that no matter what, someone else is going to do better than me. And like I said, I don't like losing. So I always try to outdo them, outwork them. And kids will tell me, what we got to do today? I go, work. Like, why always say work? It's the only reason why, because that's all we do is work. If I tell you the plan for the day, either A, you accept it, or B, you're like, not that again. But if I tell you you're going to work, it's a mental thing. And they're going, all right, I put in whatever I want out of it. And I tell the kids all the time, if I'm out hustling, if I'm out working you and you're going to give me like that type of crap, I'll just tell you to go home, or I won't work with you, because like I am so dedicated to your well-being. I go, your investment allows me to grow with you. And it's like, I'm not looking to hype up my resume. If you look at my resume, it's a lot, but I'm here to grow with you. So like, I'm still going to be the lowest. I always tell myself, I'm like here. I may be here, but I'm always going to treat myself like this, because I want to be able to climb that mountain still with you, because I know what it feels like to be at the rock bottom. I mean, being cut from a team, telling you, like, growing up, telling you you're being good all your life because you worked very hard for it, and someone tell you, hey, you're not good enough. What are you going to do? So I know for a fact that I always tell entrepreneurs, like, find your verb, experience failure, and it's okay to experience failure, and it's okay to have a goal. Write down your goals. It's okay. Type it up, put pictures on it. I'm a very picture guy. So like, you put on the wall for me, and I'll tell you exactly what my goals will be next 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. I already know what I'm going to do when I'm 45 years old. That's my goal. I already know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to retire. I want to retire from training. I want to let the business run on its own, and I do the next adventures there. And I want to train for free. That's my goal. I don't want to train to earn profit. I want to give back, like what my grandparents used to do growing up. The church, time, service there. So same thing with myself. I want to be able to give back to the kids, the community, and provide free training and work when I want to work, exactly, and not have to be hustling all day. Like, I still work 7 days a week. I work Monday through Sunday, Saturdays, Fridays. I only work mornings because that's family day for me. Saturdays only work mornings, family day for me. Sundays I work 2 hours out of the day. Then I go to church, and I go back home, and I do all the family stuff there too. But like I'm getting to the point where I can't do this much longer. My dad, just asked me, like, how much longer can you do this? And like, he sees in my face pretty much, it's fun. I love it. But sometimes, like, when you're doing the same thing over time, it drains you sometimes.
Yeah. And your body can take so much.
Right.
Before it's like, hey.
Exactly. And, this is my break right now. So coming out here, it's my break. And I get to reset. And then, but now I'll go back to the same grind. But going back to my grandparents, for what they did in their past, and from what I know from their past, like from my dad or my aunt, they were the life of the party. They were always known for things they'd done together, or things they did for the church, things they did around the neighborhood.
for their community.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want to do as well. I tell kids all the time and families, like, I don't do this to make a buck. I really don't. I mean, this is, yeah, it's a business, but I don't do it just to put your name on the wall or this person's here, this person is, because I love it. I love what I do. I love training. I love the excitement that individual gets when they accomplish something. And I love that the attitude they come in like, hey coach, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. Because like you, even though they don't know what's going on in the back end, struggling or, tired, or you're financially stuck or family problems, but you have to show them that you care about them because they're going in knowing that they're going to see you. So that's how it was with my grandparents. They always show the same face. They always show the same demeanor. They always show the same love they gave to everyone, no matter who they were. And even like my mom's side, the love they have for their family is what it's the nucleus or the glue that keep us all together close. And even like my mom and dad not being together anymore, my dad's glue was that family, my mom's side, because of the love they provided towards him and what they give him back. And same thing with my, you know, both my kids and their mothers, the same love I give to them. Like there's no difference other than just different age gaps. But I don't love one son better than the other, or vice versa. Or same thing with their mom, like, another mom. No, the same respect, love I give them. And same thing when I showed towards the kids I work with, I always talk about my kids, like, because those are my pride and joy. It's like, oh, hey, I love you guys, but those two are my pride and joy. And like, I put them on a trophy, so just know that before in the beginning, I'm like, yeah, I'll give you an hour, whatever. But now I'm like, when I need to set the standards and saying, no, I need to spend time with my kids. Like I respect, like I want to work with you, but like there's certain times of the day I just can't do it no more. So just because I want to spend time with my kids. So if you can respect that, then that's more respectful between amongst each other. And I get a lot of people saying, like, hey, that's cool. Like I get it, because I want to spend time with my family. So, but other than that, going with that being said, I think the one thing I suggest the most is that have fun doing it. Have fun in everything, because you never know what, life's gonna hit you with. And if it hits you with a curve, smile. Like, all right, bring it on.
Justin, I want to thank you so much for opening up and thanking whoever it was that told you that you needed to be more out there and present your story to people. I want to say thank you to them too, because what a great privilege it is to have you with all your knowledge and all your experience, and for you to be able to open up the way that you have with us. I know that I personally have learned a lot, and I really appreciate everything that you've come and shared with us, because like I've said, I've been going through challenges. I've been going through those moments that you've already overcome, of the hardships that come with entrepreneurship and having your own business, and the doubt that creeps in and makes you want to throw in the towel. So I really appreciate you opening up and being able to share and give us an example of what it is to overcome those hurdles and come on the other side.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for inviting me and welcoming me into your adventures. And I hope to do more of this with you guys and watch you guys grow. And I'm always a phone call, a DM away, and stuff like that.
So how do we find you on social media?
Yeah, I have a personal page. It's called CM_Jmagz. That's my personal page. You'll see all my info on there. My number and my email's on there as well. And then I have a business page called Creating Monsters. That's where you have all of our coaches on there, including myself there. You can reach out to any of us there too. We're pretty much all knowledgeable and can reach out questions. We have coaches that are young, so you can ask questions on that, see how they're doing. You have experienced coaches as well, like Conrad and Farron. Those are like my two best friends. They're we're the older crowd, I guess you can say. We all grew up together, and so we have more of a knowledge there too. And then we have Mike and Vince, who are our coaches, and Eric as well, and they're the young bucks. And so you can reach them there. You can ask me anytime, any place. I'm always a click away, and I'm pretty fast responding back, by the way. So even if you text me, email me, DM me, I'll respond back pretty quick. I don't believe in just giving time of day. Like I just get it done out of the way. Like I have a friend that's got like 700 texts, and I'm like, how do you respond back to all that really quick, But no, I don't like having all that there too. But also Twitter, Creating Monsters as well. And but yeah.
Again, thank you so much for being with us, Justin, and thank you for listening, for watching. Please remember to subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, and on Apple so that you can be alerted when a new episode comes out. And also, please remember to come and visit us inside Savage Coffee, the official sponsor of the Savage podcast. We are now located inside the Boeing Center at Techport.